Hi there, VerCauteren here. I am so sorry that I'm not there in person with you, enjoying good Belgian beers and your camaraderie. But alas, things did not work out, and here I am in my garage in Fort Collins, Colorado, instead of there where I should be. I'm with the United States Department of Agriculture's National Wildlife Research Center, and a lot of my research focus is on invasive feral swine in North America. My co-authors on this presentation are Dana Cole, who coordinates our national program, and Doctors Kim Pepin and Nathan Snow, who are fellow researchers on my team. Wildlife monitoring in the US kind of varies depending on the species. For mammals, like a lot of our big game and small game animals that don't really cross state boundaries much, like the white-tailed deer in the middle of the picture, the purview for their management, for the most part, lies with the states. For species that are using the states a lot, but also migratory, at least seasonally, across state boundaries and even country boundaries, like the Canada geese here in the upper left. Then, besides state management, there's also a federal component to that management. And at the federal levels, then we also communicate with the other countries that those species may go to, right? Like Canada to the north for us and Mexico to the south. And relatedly to that, I don't know if it's making international news or not, but there's been a lot of excitement recently about the super pigs in Canada that are encroaching on the Canadian boundary and threatening to come into the US, which they have to some degree already. And there's a little bit of something to it in that the wild boar in Canada truly are genetically a little more closer to Eurasian wild boar than a lot of the hybrids that we've got in most of the US. Most of our pigs are in the southeast, right? But of course, we are working closely with our Canadian colleagues. We have transboundary working groups, and we've done collaborative research with them since day one. So anyway, we're keeping an eye on that issue. I'm not sure if you heard about the Canadian super pigs or not. The situation in the United States is essentially, of course, when Europeans came and settled this continent, they brought with them wild pigs. And we've got it documented all pretty well. And it wasn't really until like the 1980s, and I think what it is that that's when Americans started to have more free time, more hobbies, big game hunting being one of those hobbies, more time to travel and more time to recreate. And moving pigs around, establishing populations in different areas, it really wasn't being paid attention to by our wildlife management agencies. It wasn't really on their radar. Um, and before long, in the words of Jack Mayer, I would say the foremost authority on wild pigs in North America, the wild pig bomb had went off, and populations were climbing in several areas, and we really had to start to take notice. We've done a lot of modeling efforts here, shown on this slide, showing where we felt the pigs could be expanding to in the absence of any kind of management. And of course, the kind of damage that we're experiencing is all quite the same as what you're experiencing across Europe, with damage to different crops, natural ecosystems, all kinds of cultural and other sorts of resources. To the point that, really in quite an unprecedented move, at the federal level of our government, there was $20 million appropriated to controlling invasive wild pigs or feral swine in the US in 2014. And I'd have been happy if we could just keep that 20 million every year, but actually it's kind of climbed over the years. And last year we were at $32.6 million that we could put toward this effort. And how we're couching it, how we're using those dollars for the most part, depend on how many pigs a given state has. And this map here shows our tiered approach. So the 4 states that have the most invasive feral swine are the darker red states. They get the most money. And these brighter red states, they get this next level of money. On down to states that don't have many pigs at all, where they're not getting near as many funds, but still enough that we can keep an eye on things to detect pigs if they show up, and then to swoop in and remove them before they get established. And then on top of that, in 2018, we got an additional influx of money, 75 million to be used over 5 years to do what we called pilot projects. So each of these highlighted areas are counties within the US. Within every state, there's several counties. And we would focus on different counties, and this was over 2 rounds. This was a farm bill, kind of special dollars just for this effort. Round one are the red colored counties, and in round two, we expanded into these blue colored counties. What we did there is it'd be a concentrated effort. We go into a county and try to really, really help those landowners in that area out with a lot of pig control work and helping them kind of reestablish crops and things like that. So that's been a very positive effort for us. And along with that, although it's kind of federal dollars that are leading it all, we've also done a lot of work to form local, state, regional, national, and international collaborations and task forces with unified goals of managing feral swine. So everything from local level, like this picture here, like at the lower picture, where we're going to different areas, showing off all the tools, the helicopters, the traps, how to use them. A lot of cases, then implementing those pilot projects right in those areas, all the way to our international programs, where we're working in trilateral meetings with our neighbors, Canada to the north, Mexico to the south, to coordinate our efforts. Now, as far as monitoring our populations go, we know we have a long way to go. We can get a lot better at it than we are doing right now. On a large scale, on the front end of this program anyway, it's been body counts. Yep, you give us more money and we can document that we're killing more pigs. And it's kind of gotten us through to this point, but we know better. The important number isn't how many pigs you killed, it's how many pigs you've left behind. So that's a big part of what I'm working on. I try to find ways of what's left behind, better metrics of assessing population size and our impacts of our efforts in um, reducing them. So that's kind of a work in progress. Other things that we're keeping track of is resources protected. As we remove pigs off the landscape, we do keep track of what resources they were protecting when we removed them, right? What resources we were protecting when we removed them. So about half of the time when we're removing feral swine, of course, we're the United States Department of Agriculture, we're protecting agricultural resources. Other times it's other properties, it's natural resources, um, or it's for human health and safety. Another aspect of this is stakeholder surveys, where we're talking with the landowners and monitoring what they're doing to be able to detect, okay, we went in and we had farmers in this area who said they used to plant corn, but because of the overabundant feral swine and the damage that they cause, now they're relegated to planting something that the wild pigs don't like as much, like cotton. You know, we can monitor that. Are they going back? Are they now planting those higher dollar crops that they'd rather be planting? And if so, that'd be a way for us to really assess our impact. On smaller scales, we're doing the research now to try to do a better job of monitoring those populations. One method that we're working with, we call a removal model, where we can go in and do a control effort and then try to rebuild the population to determine what the population was at before we did that effort. This graph is from a study that we did in a unit of a national wildlife refuge in our state of Hawaii, where we went in initially, and actually initially, when we were working with this refuge, they felt in this fenced in unit, they tried to fence all the swine out, fence broke down, pigs got back in, and then we're coming back a few years later to try to help them with their issues. And they felt they had maybe 100 wild pigs. We went in there that first time and we killed 206 of those 100 wild pigs. And you probably have a lot of those same experiences too. But anyway, we're able to rebuild that population to see that when we started our research effort there, they had about 485 pigs. We went in, removed a bunch, got down to about 280 pigs. Went back again, the population had rebuilt a little bit, and we knocked it right back down, but there was a big birth pulse. So our impact wasn't that large. It went in a third time, and we reduced it from about 260 pigs down to about 86 pigs. So this is one tool that we're using, is with multiple removal efforts, we can determine where the pig population was, where we're bringing it, how good of a job we're doing. Another strategy that we're using is what we call our diffs. This is just an indices. It's indices to get densities that relates. This one uses trail cameras. We put trail cameras out for 5-day stints, and we bait these trail cameras in this instance. And we're essentially looking at the average maximum number of wild pigs per day per camera. And during a control effort, you can see how we're, through these indices, impacting that population. So you can see at that same property in Hawaii, we're getting about 6.3, 6.23 pigs per day in our first 2 runs. We did one in April of 2021 and one September of April 2021. Then we did our first removal, which was December of 2021, and we almost halved the population. And with these bars here, what we're doing is doing our diffs about a month after removal, let the pigs calm back down. But then what the white bars is we remove any pigs from our analysis that were like 4 weeks old or less, because they weren't available to be removed during the removal period. Anyway, it drops those estimates down a little bit so we can see our impact without the birth pulse being accounted for. So this is a method that we're using that's doing pretty well for us in kind of a quick and dirty way. What my goal is operationally, it's hard for our operations guys to want to spend a minute of their time or a nickel of their allocations on anything but killing pigs, but I need them monitoring pigs so we know how good of a job we're doing, of course, right? So this diffs is one of those methods that we're working at that hopefully they'll be able to use here in the near future. Another big effort that we're doing that I want to tell you a little bit about, this one's taking place in Texas, one of the largest states in the continental US. That red spot there on the little inset of Texas, that is actually the largest continuous ranch in the US, owned by one landowner, the same person who owns our Walmart stores and a couple of our big sporting teams. And we're doing a study here that really is motivated by being prepared for African swine fever, where we want to see what tools are the best to use to quickly remove a lot of pigs from the landscape, and in an integrated way, how would we work them together? Like, for example, in this study, we're looking at trapping, a toxicant, and aerial gunning. But are we best off to go in and aerial gun first, get what we can, and then come in and trap, use a toxicant to clean up the rest? Or is that a bad strategy because the aerial gunning might push the wild pigs far and wide, so now you could be spreading disease, for example. Anyway, in this study, we've got those different treatment areas. We've got a control, we've got in the red a toxicant area, in the pink is a trapping area, and in the blue is our aerial area. And we've gridded this large study area off in square kilometers. And within each kilometer, we randomly locate one camera trap. And these have been running continuously since well before we started any of our control efforts to monitor these populations. And we haven't analyzed these data yet, so we're still not sure how it's going to work. But with these population cameras, we're hoping to be able to use like a time to event or space to event models to determine what the population was and track how it changed with our efforts. The concept being here essentially that the same pig can't be in 2 places at once. A little bit more on that study, just for your curiosity, I guess, would be that we're comparing those removal methods to see which are the most effective. And so far, and this is very early days, all these data are coming off of apps that we use on our phones. So it's not apples to apples at this point. But although the front end cost of a helicopter is very expensive, they certainly are proving to be the most effective means of getting pigs off of the landscape. I also want to talk about our disease surveillance to some degree too. We've always had some underlying, since the program started in 2014, underlying level of surveillance going on, looking at diseases that are present just to kind of monitor them on the landscape, like our pseudorabies and swine brucellosis, and also for foreign animal diseases that aren't present in the US, but to be kind of looking out for them. And we've been averaging about 6,000 samples per year in this effort. Here's some of those data just for your curiosity. But then most recently, with African swine fever now getting as close as the Dominican Republic, not too far off our southeastern coast of Florida. We've ramped up efforts associated with foreign animal diseases, African swine fever, of course, being the primary focus. So we're doing some real targeted surveillance, mostly in those states that are closest to where we think it might come from, in proximity to the Dominican Republic, um, as well as related to where our domestic swine industry is, and hubs like airports where it could come in, or coastal harbors and things. So that's been a big effort within our national program here for the last couple of years. And I wanted to just kind of talk about some of the other things that we're up to too. My research team, we're always working to improve tools and our control techniques. And again, I wish I was there so we could be having a beer and talking about the work that I'm doing. I could be learning about the work that you folks are doing, because there's so many synergies. But we're working on toxicants, making our traps more and more efficient, uh, opening the door to ways to do a better job of removing feral swine with night vision and improved ammunition, improved use of attractants so that we can select for feral swine and against like native wildlife that might also be interested in coming into our traps and eating the bait that's in the traps, and also the incorporation of drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, and the role they can play in helping us with our control. A lot of our effort in these first years, early days of this program has really been in educating the public, helping them appreciate how big of an issue these invasive wild pigs have become for us. And it's working. We're getting a lot more public support. People are starting to realize the issues, look around them and see what's all going on with these feral swine, to realize that, yep, this really is a big issue, and they can play a part in helping us control, manage our feral swine. And of course, with this influx of money, um, that interest and the funding, it's leading to more research, which is leading to more knowledge, which is helping us make better, more informed decisions. Some of our goals, of course, is to try to maintain this level of funding. Wild pig management control is expensive. So hopefully we can kind of keep it going to keep our level of activity as high as it is and even higher, because we're doing a great job, but I don't know that we're reducing densities all that much in some of those states where the pigs are really well established. We're working on a lot of properties, but still, they're just like small postage stamps, in an ocean. So it's hard to be making a huge difference. Some of our challenges is that over the years, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, there's just increased popularity of hunting wild pigs. So there's marketing around it. There's social media, kind of the green uh, approach of natural protein. So it's kind of attractive to be harvesting wild pigs for food. The shooting sports in the U.S. are over the top popular, and some of the magazines and things will make you think that if you're hunting pigs, you're kind of helping the cause. But our data is kind of showing that really hunting is not helping us. If anything, hunting is kind of hurting our control efforts. Other challenges is that it's just a really growing culture. Um, we're curbing it some, but looking at the, for example, this picture on the bottom left, uh, a wild pig dressed up in the colors of our red, white, and blue flag. So now all of a sudden, wild pigs are as American as apple pie and driving a Chevrolet, right? So it's really becoming quite ingrained in some of these local communities. It's becoming more and more cultural. So the wild pigs are part of their persona. So for us to go and try to villainize them and be removing pigs is not always the most popular thing. So we've got a ways to go. But anyways, in a nutshell, that is what's going on in North America around all aspects of wild pigs. Again, I wish I was there to answer your questions in person and talk about it in depth, but I'll be around as much as I can online here and being engaged as much as I can. Thank you. So I wrap up with that. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Again, I wish that I was there with you so we could talk about these issues in depth. I'll be as engaged as I can online, realizing how clumsy that is. Ugh. But anyways, again, I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity, and have a good rest of your conference. Thank you.